You're listening to Enlighten COVID-19 podcast series, a podcast dedicated to helping your business beat the pandemic. Join us as we unpack how COVID-19 is shaping the future of customer experience and offer insights on ways your business can not only survive, but thrive through these difficult times.
Really having a look at some of the ways that COVID-19 is really shaping the world of customer experience and the world in general, and I suppose the new world of work. My name is Brendon Bairstow-Klopper, and I'm one of the directors at nlighten, and I'm joined today by Justine Jackson-Fraser, who has a company called Psychology at Work. Perhaps before we start kind of getting into the nitty-gritty as such, Justine, maybe if you could just give us a little bit of background in terms of who you are, the kind of work that you're involved in, literally just to set some context.
Oh, thanks, Brendon. Thanks for having me. Psychology at Work, I think we've been going for over 15 years now. My background is clinical psychology, and really bringing that into how people behave on an individual level in the workplace, and then the functionality of teams, so all the dynamics that work well and make us super resilient and awesome teams, and then all the dynamics that come in and kind of work against that. So looking at ways of finding solutions for those, and then obviously also at an organizational level, where we look at the culture of teams and the culture of organizations. And how to affect that culture or shift or change the direction of that culture into one that you want and accept.
I think that culture has always been a business driver, and I think particularly in this time, as we see team dynamics change and the culture of organizations change, because I think that culture is fluid. Such a poignant time, and I suppose how important it is to be able to focus on organizational culture when you go through a time period such as COVID or any kind of pandemic as such.
No, and I think it's pointing in organizational history and our anxiety about this new normal stuff and change that we're not even sure what they're going to look like in the end. But in that space, I think we focus on the bottom line, and we focus on core stuff that we can measure easily.
Yes.
And culture, unfortunately, I think we just hope it kind of takes care of itself in the background. But as we have proven time and time again, if you ignore culture or hope it just takes care of itself in the background, it can give you some nasty surprises. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up anxiety. I saw that you posted a meme that really resonated with me, and it's something along these lines. Kind of welcome to 2020. If you don't already have an anxiety disorder, one will be assigned to you. Can you talk to us a little bit about anxiety? Because I know for me personally, both in my personal capacity and from a business perspective, I have been going through a lot of anxiety, and sometimes that volume is fairly high and debilitating. How does one cope with anxiety?
It's also a lesson I had to relearn. So I think this thing gave us all such a fright, unplanned, unanticipated. None of my horoscopes predicted any of that stuff. And then it happened. And then I think on an individual level, those of us with more inherent emotional resilience were managed to kind of postpone our anxiety reaction or stress reaction. But it doesn't mean it goes away, it's still lurking there. And then I think initially we thought, okay, well, it'll just be almost 3 weeks, right?
Yeah.
And then
it wasn't.
and then it really wasn't. And we're sitting almost on 90 days now, okay?
Yeah.
And although I do feel tricklings of joy when I see normal life start again, But that period of time is too long just to postpone anxiety, so it will creep through here. So we all process anxiety in different ways. Some people run around their house 59 times and score a great time for their virtual marathons, and other people we just don't sleep so well. A lot of individuals who are now all of a sudden homeschooling and having a lot more people in their normally sacred space are having to cope with so much more, and then try to hide that anxiety, and it obviously isn't processed healthily and will in unexpected ways and often unwelcome ways. I think anxiety is one of the not necessarily, it doesn't always have to be debilitating, but one of the most unwanted feelings. Like depression is almost, it can be a friend at some point, something that you slink into. But anxiety is just a nasty little surprise.
Yeah, it's a weird emotion to go through. I suppose, one of the impacts that COVID-19 is having on businesses today is that we really have to become anti-fragile. And I suppose to your point, prepare at least for now as if we're not really going back to normal, whatever normal was. In our world, in terms of customer experience, which we nickname CX, we say that you can't have great CX without having great sex. And what I mean by that is staff engagement experience.
I'm so focused on what you're saying.
I know, I'm sure. From your perspective, from a psychology at work perspective, what's your take on that?
100% agree. When you walk into any company or any retailer or anybody else's space, I think we automatically, unconsciously pick up on what's happening in that environment. And then if it's triggering something for you that's not comfortable, that there's something going on there, then it becomes conscious, and then we actually look for signs of discomfort or dynamic. And then you see the lack of eye contact between co-workers, and then you see a lack of seamlessness happening with a team very quickly in front of house teams. And then once it's conscious, unfortunately, our brain is then programmed to look for other clues that show these unhealthy dynamics, and we look for stuff that's not working in the organization. And you hear clients say stuff like, well, I knew this wasn't going to work, but just see, from the first moment I spoke to that guy on the phone, he didn't know what I was talking about. And so we program our brains with thought of, okay, I'm uncomfortable, something's not working, I can pick up that something's not okay here, and then we look for evidence to support that view, which is a negative customer experience. It's a negative self-fulfilling prophecy in a way, because we only look for information that we've already set our minds to.
You speak a lot about becoming resilient and building resilience. I suppose, taking a step back, what stops individuals, teams, and organizations from becoming anti-fragile or, becoming more resilient, as you put it? What are some of the barriers? What hinders?
There's so many different ones, but if I talk first on an individual level,
of course,
I think inherently we're all born with a certain amount of resilience. So you either win the genetic lottery in life or you're more not. So it's your C factor, it's your genes, and you can cope with a certain amount of stress or not. It's genetically underpinned, so you can't really change that. So companies could recruit individuals, for instance, who psychometrically have shown that they are high in resilience. But that's not enough, because that is just an inherent factor in individuals. And then they start interacting with other people. And then we start to see, for instance, can this person connect easily without incurring unnecessary drama? Can they deliver without unnecessarily any kind of unassertiveness or passive aggressiveness or overtly aggressive? So can they make quick decisions in how they're going in their behavior that will increase the ease with which they interact, and therefore not build any blockages, which would then obviously sap their resilience. So you've got your inherent resilience, and then you kind of need to build a behavior around that, which can either bubble wrap and duvet wrap and protect your resilience or expose it.
Sure.
So for instance, let's say I've got a medium C factor, so I'm medium emotionally resilient and I go about my life, but I make some unfortunate decisions. So I have relationships that tax me. So relationships that are unsupportive or potentially even worse than that. Then I also go and I work in a job where it doesn't fit my natural personality style and doesn't match my experience. So I'm stretched very thin to prove myself. And then I also don't develop any certain skills, so I can't say what I want, so I can't get my needs met. Now those things matter hugely in terms of either protecting my inherent emotional resilience or exposing it. And if I've made those unfortunate decisions, which I've just explained, then my C factor is going to be completely exposed. And it's going to look like I can handle even less than a medium C factor. So it's going to look like I'm going to be reactive, I'm going to be moody, I'm going to have outbursts, I'm going to not be able to control my reactions, so I'm going to be like unnecessarily flammable. It's going to be very easy to have a negative reaction from me, or at least when it doesn't work.
And organizational level, what inherent factors within organizations kind of hinder the ability to build a resilient business, to build resilient teams, to I suppose acknowledge and empower that so that they can become anti-fragile at that level?
Leadership unfortunately plays a massive role.
Sure.
It's just if you have a brilliant MD or CEO who shows gorgeous emotional resilience and who is completely anti-fragile and who can see opportunities quickly and who is willing for the business to take risks in terms of move quickly, then that will inspire your teams. It sets the cultural new normal in a way so that everybody sees, okay, that's what my CEO values. Let me try and attempt some of that. And that even happens on an unconscious level.
Sure.
So leadership is massive. It's also massive in terms of when people make mistakes, they don't get punished for that. When you are in a boardroom or a thinking session, and you're asking members to contribute with solutions, and then let's say they come up with a badly thought through or a badly formulated sentence, and instead of going, no, I think you must rather say it this way, or like you're shook, you didn't get enough sleep last night, or something critical like that. Instead of going like that, you can say like, okay, how can we flesh that out a bit more? What else? So any kind of encouraging statements in that moment will create an atmosphere in that team, in that boardroom, which will then create a culture for that organization where it's okay to make little mistakes. It's not okay to sit still. It's okay to throw an enormous amount of solutions that might not be glossy and perfect yet, throw them onto the board now while we are incubating new stuff, risk that they might be wrong, and be encouraged by that.
So for me, it sounds like it really centers around authentic, emotionally intelligent leadership that is able to engage in a way that brings the best out of teams without kind of naming and shaming.
Initially, obviously to track and watch sentiments of individuals and the populace of South Africa while this whole lockdown thing's been happening. When Cyril put his mask on incorrectly over his eyes.
He handled that so well.
Like a truly emotionally resilient, non-defensive, laughing at himself, brilliant adult. And he won so much favor with that, as opposed to the perfect head boy putting it on in a meticulously engineered way, which no one can really connect with.
Because you kind of connected to his vulnerability and his authenticity and his ability to laugh at himself.
And willingness to make a mistake. And to bounce back from that with a sense of humor. And that for me is still anti-fragile.
Yeah.
It's your ability to bounce back. It's your ability to change direction. And I mean, we can use fancy words like pivot and make opportunities everywhere, that kind of stuff. But for me, you can almost sense it immediately in an individual where there's a more willingness to take it as it comes and to sit in the moment, and that authenticity you were talking about. It's like, oh, let's see. This could be, let me be curious.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So when we look at building resilience on an individual, team and organizational level, what advice would you be able to give others if they're looking to do just that?
So if I was giving advice to somebody in HR or a CEO or MD, then I would definitely say you do have to prioritize culture, particularly at this time when you don't really want to, when you just want to go and grab as many clients as you can and just focus on that. Please don't neglect the cultural stuff. Because now is the perfect time to set a new culture for this new normal, and to set the culture and to breathe life into something that you wanted to go in that way. So if you want a culture that's creative, if you want a culture that's high performance, if you want a culture that is anti-fragile and can handle negative feedback and move and shift and change, then now is the time to focus on it. And your individuals in your teams and in your organizations are stressed and they are anxious, whether they are acknowledging it or not. And in that vulnerability is a fabulous time to connect with them and to show them and to co-create a new normal that everybody buys into and that everybody's engaged with. The time to do that is not necessarily when the company's flying high and when the economy is booming, that kind of stuff, because you don't need to. But there's a need for it now. The people that you work with in your teams, your colleague that you sit next to, never mind your whole organization that's looking at you to role model. Everyone is in a vulnerable space right now. We're probably suffering from some form of collective PTSD, with having our rights whipped away like that and being so controlled all of a sudden. It's frightening. And in that vulnerability, particularly a collective one, which doesn't come along often, it's a gorgeous time to reach out and to acknowledge that space with one another and to ask other people to input what they want in that culture or in that team or in that partnership of two. And it's a gorgeous time to ask you yourself as an individual, how am I going to have my days? What do I want different? What wasn't working for me? What can I shift? And what can I take ownership of? And you might not be able to take ownership of it. You can't control the economy on a macro level right now. But what can we do? And what do we want to do? And can we do it more consciously this time? And more sustainably? One of those yummy things.
It sounds from a culture perspective, the time is now where we need to create a more supportive, collaborative, exactly, or authentic. You know what I mean? It can't just be lip service. It's got to be felt. It's got to be experienced within the organization.
I think I end up going into organizations a lot where they've done their values exercises and they've got their gorgeous stuff on the wall about where they're mentioning collaboration or authenticity or any of those buzzwords at the moment. But not very many people know actually how to do that. They know they should want that stuff, but they don't know how to do it.
From I suppose from the behavioural perspective.
Well, for me, it definitely needs to be behavioural. So when someone says to me, we're really aiming for authenticity, my first question is, okay, what are you doing? And how are you doing that? And then if I see kind of a blank look or, then I'm like, okay, so that's where we need to go now, because at least we agree that we want that. But if we don't know how to do that, then we're painting with a lot of paint.
Spoken about behavior a lot, and a couple of years ago I was fortunate enough to attend one of your interpersonal intelligence programs that really focused on behavior and dynamics and how we shift our behaviors at a personal level and how that impacts and has a ripple effect. And that's definitely had a huge impact in my life in terms of how I deal with personal relationships, my team dynamic from an nlighten perspective, and even how I engage with our clients. I believe that you have a workshop that really centers around building resilience. Can you tell us what that's all about? I mean, what's the focus there?
Yeah, so thank you for remembering our flagship program. It was years ago.
It was really good. It's fantastic. I talk about it a lot.
It's my, so that is, I mean, it's still running. It's 15 years ago. But during this whole COVID thing, I got sideswiped by anxiety and I really didn't like it. And my normal modes of coping just weren't cutting it. So we did a quick refocus on how we could flesh out that model a little bit more to include almost becoming your own rational emotive therapist, so becoming your own coach in your head or your own therapist that's kind of finding that those negative or those irrational or those anxiety-producing thoughts and really not pretending they're not there and not just trying to shut them up, but just redirecting them into something that is a little bit more under our own control. So I played with a couple of new techniques. Stuff is moving so fast these days in terms of new, especially neuropsychology and all the fabulous new weird stuff and those binaural beats and all those lovely things. So I went and I tried a whole lot of stuff. And some worked for me and some didn't work for me. And I also had to acknowledge that some stuff would work for other people, even though it didn't work for me. So we sunk ourselves deep into that stuff in an effort to stem my own anxiety during that time, and also in an effort to be more agile and to look at what the new marketplace might mean. Because I do think individuals and teams are going to need a little bit of a detox process after this, just to get rid of some of those fear in our neurons and in our neuropsychology, and get rid of some of the cortisol that's going to be left in there, and some of the new fears that we're going to have stepping into this unknown space.
True. Any last thoughts or advice, from your perspective, what would be your absolute non-negotiables as we enter into this new area of work and engagement and the new normal?
The blank page.
Exactly.
We can put whatever we want.
I know.
The advice to myself is to breathe and not to let that anxiety take hold, and to remember that I am in a space where I can create what I want with other people. And then my advice to others from individual leadership perspective is that to be present and to connect is far more important now than it ever has been before. If you're working virtually with your Zooms and your Google Meets and all those kind of things, your body language and what you say is now even more important than it was when you could just scuttle over to someone's desk. So to be present, to use your words to be authentic, and to have like conversations like we've just had, whenever there's a space to do so, I think that is priceless. And the next time you connect with that individual, where you may need something more transactional, for instance, you've already connected. The hard work is done. You're already on the same page, and that stuff is golden.
I like the focus on connection. I mean, I've been spending a lot of time thinking about what people will value kind of post-COVID, if I can call it that. And in my mind, I think just thinking about what we've gone through as a society, as a species, if you think about lockdown, if you think about social distancing, if you think about not being able to see friends and family, et cetera, I think I think connection has always been important from a customer experience perspective, but I think that in terms of what people will value even more going forward, that connection is absolutely key, and I love that you brought that up, because it definitely resonates with me.
And for instance, I'm probably more loyal to the brands that I love, and I want to support them and I want to help them through this difficult time as a customer as well. So those things do come when we are feeling vulnerable.
Yeah.
And we're feeling vulnerable.
Well, Justine, I mean, as always, I love speaking with you about this because I think that you've got a wealth of knowledge and experience within the space. And yeah, let's see where this series goes, and maybe we can connect again. And we'll obviously include, all the links to your website and some of your social media, pages and that, if people want to make contact with you directly, or just come through Enlighten, and we'll gladly pass your info on.
It's lovely to see you.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Join us for next week's episode as we continue to discuss the future of customer experience and learn how to make the most of this unique time. Until the next one, take stock, be bold, and stay relevant.